from Nipissing.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Finance. Life is unaffordable in Ontario. Families are working harder, paying more and getting less than any other province in the country. That's why the government needs to do more to alleviate the tax burden on the middle class. This weekend, the Ontario PC Party and our leader, Patrick Brown, laid out our plan, the People's Guarantee. One part of that guarantee was a 22.5% cut to income taxes for the middle class.
So that the members realize all members realize I have not changed the direction that I'm trying to bring our House to. Today is no different day. If I'm getting the signals that that is going to change, I will start with warnings very quickly, just to set the tone. Please carry on.
Mr. Speaker, an Ontario PC government would bring real change for middle-class families. Why won't this Liberal government, Speaker?
Thank you. Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's a real honour to be able to stand before you and the rest of this House to acknowledge the tremendous work that Ontarians have done to bring our economy to where it is today, and recognizing that it's only been possible because of stimulus and the balanced approach that we've taken to ensure that we recover from this global economic downturn that's been sustained for a long period of time. And yet, Ontario leads Canada. It leads the G7. And for that matter, Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to create more jobs than ever before. The member opposite, the critic, the leader of the opposition, has long advocated for balanced budgets. And, Mr. Speaker, the largest deficit in Canadian history was voted by the leader of the opposition for $60 billion. That is their plan, Mr. Speaker. They're taking the province into deficit going forward.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll send a copy of the plan over to you, and you can have a real look at it, because Ontario used to be a province where if you worked hard, spent wisely, and saved diligently, a family could get ahead. They could build a better future for their children. That's right. But that's not the case in Ontario any longer, Speaker. Families are struggling, and some are falling behind. They need help. That's why we know Ontario families need lower taxes.
Excuse me. Stop the clock. We're in warnings. We're in warnings. Carry on.
22.5% lower income taxes for middle-class families, Speaker, would make a significant difference in the lives of those trying to get ahead. But, Mr. Speaker, we can't trust the Liberals to make life more affordable. Why should anyone in Ontario trust them?
Thank you. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government, under the leadership of Premier Kathleen Wynne, we have instituted progressive measures while at the same time becoming and managing our expenses. We are providing free tuition for students, free pharmacare for everyone under the age of 25, 100,000 more childcare spaces. And the member opposite is advocating for cuts. Cuts to education and cuts to health care, Mr. Speaker. That is their plan. And what we on this side of the House will take a balanced approach to ensure that we can afford the things that matter to Ontarians, while that side is cutting revenues and cutting across the board the very services that matter to us. We on this side of the House will always look after the people of Ontario.
Final supplementary.
Thank you. Back to the minister. Well, that is a complete fabrication, Speaker.
The member will withdraw.
Withdraw.
On.
For 14 years, we have seen Liberal insiders get rich at the expense of the people of Ontario. And while the government lined the pockets of high-priced executives, middle-class families struggled. It's not their imagination. Middle-class wages have stagnated for 14 years, while Liberal taxes and fees continued to rise. Thanks to this government, middle-class Ontario is poorer than the average Canadian. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to ask, when did the Liberals decide they were the government for the insiders and no longer for the people?
Thank you. Minister.
Page 76 of their plan made it very clear, Mr. Speaker. Over $12 billion is what's being cut across the board to the people of Ontario. So the question becomes, what are you going to cut? And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, they're making decisions only on election cycles. They don't want to go long-term or look beyond. Mr. Speaker, we got to have a long-term vision of things that matter.
You may choose your last comment. That could get you the warning. When I stand, you stop. Finish, please.
We create over 800,000 net new jobs, primarily in the private sector. The economy is growing. I recognize that many across the province don't feel the same benefit as others with our prosperity. We need to do better, and I did so in the fall economic statement. And I hope the member opposite will approve and support the fall economic statement that does real plan for the real people of this province to make sure that they get real prosperity going forward.
Be seated, please. Be seated, please.
You can take the risk if you'd like to keep talking. New question. The member from Nipissing.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister of Finance. You know, first they disparaged the Auditor General, then they disparaged the Financial Accountability Officer, and now they disparage Kevin Page, the former Budget Officer. In the 1990s, Ontario's average income was 10% above the national average. But in 2012, income in Ontario fell below the national average for the first time ever. In fact, between 2005 and 2015, Ontario families saw the slowest rate of income growth of any province in Canada. Once the envy of the country, middle-class Ontarians now struggle. They work harder, pay more, and get less under this Liberal government. Mr. Speaker, why has the Liberal government spent 14 years allowing the middle-class families to struggle to keep their heads above water?
Thank you. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that is rich coming from that side of the House. We're providing for an increase in the minimum wage that they are now denying the people of Ontario, Mr. Speaker. Stand up and fight for the people of Ontario. We have 5.9% unemployment rate, the lowest it's been, and it's 31 months below the national average. We will continually support everyone in this province for the sake of the families of this province, Mr. Speaker. They're putting at risk their livelihood. They are instituting a much more expensive carbon tax, Mr. Speaker, to the people of Ontario. We recognize that'll put us in harm's way. We need to be competitive for businesses and competitive for the people of Ontario, where everyone should share in that growth. That is why we are increasing minimum wage to $15, and they are not.
And we're doing it. Supplementary.
Back to the minister. This government brought in some of the largest tax increases in Ontario's history. Between the health tax, the HST, and other fees, the Liberals have made life unaffordable. Families every day email and call our offices. They share their stories, and they tell us they just don't have any money left. That is why we can't trust this Liberal government, and that is why a PC government will reduce income taxes for the middle class. That's why a PC government will increase the Ontario sales tax credit, and that's why an Ontario PC government will make life more affordable for Ontario families. Speaker, that's what is fair. Why won't the Liberals make life affordable for Ontario families?
So, Mr. Speaker, we know their plan in the past. We hear it now going forward. It's not much of a plan, because what are they going to do in order to achieve deficits, no less, Mr. Speaker? They're promoting deficit spendings going forward, and we are going to balance this year, next year, and the year after that. And in order for them to achieve even a little bit of that deficit that they're proposing, they're going to go back to firing nurses, closing hospitals, reducing funding for health care.
Finish, please.
And, Mr. Speaker, we have been disciplined and determined in our plan to recover and to plan to come to balance, and it's being achieved. And, Mr. Speaker, the members opposite are going to put our economy in harm's way by taking excessive actions that they're proposing, which will, in essence, put us at a disadvantage over other jurisdictions around the world. We will continue to be free traders and continue to support Ontario.
Thank you.
Final supplementary.
Back to the minister. Speaker, this is about trust. This is about looking out for Ontario families across Ontario. This is about making life more affordable. That is why we need to lower taxes in Ontario after years of Liberals raiding middle-class families to pay their Liberal insiders. If you want to know what the Liberals will do, just look at what they've done for the last 14 years. The Ontario PCs will make life more affordable. Speaker, why do the Liberals continue to make it harder for Ontario families to succeed?
Be seated, please. Be seated, please.
Thank you. Minister.
It is all about trust, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell you this. We can trust this government to continue to fight for the people of Ontario, while the opposition, you can trust them to cut the very measures that matter to Ontarians. I can tell you this, Mr. Speaker, when we provided for free Medicare for everyone under the age of 25 for pharmacare, they voted against that, Mr. Speaker. What? They'll take that away. When we were talking about providing for free tuition for students so they can get a better start in life, they voted against that as well, Mr. Speaker, and that's what you can trust from that side of the House. We can also trust that the opposition, federally, when the leader of the opposition was in power, voted in the largest deficit in our history, and the largest debt increase in Canadian history came from the leader of the opposition. And the critic now stands here and suggests that somehow cutting revenues, as well as and Mr. Speaker, cutting revenues and going into deficit spending is not what's in the best interest of the people of Ontario. We need to provide for programs and services that matter.
Thank you.